Hi, Phoenix family. So tonight's topic is Valentine's Day, and it's pagan origins. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the pagan origins of Valentine's is actually Lupercalia, the celebration in February of fertility, and the Roman god Fauna. Okay, that was a god of fertility and also agriculture. In the year 496 is when Lupercalia is actually documented. But the reason why it is documented is because of the Pope that had decided that the pagan practice of Lupercalia was considered immoral and therefore began to take it away from the pagan practices and made St. Valentine's Day on February the 14th. It wasn't until 1916 where we have what we know of today with the candy and the chocolate, the flowers, and going to dinner and stuff like that. Um, Before that, it was definitely a day about lovers. It was definitely a day about celebration. It's just that Hallmark and things like that made it more commercial after 1916. So from 496 to um, 1916, it was always noted as, let's see, how did he word it? Um, the St. Valentine's Day, the patron day for lovers. And that's basically how it's celebrated. That's how we know it. In the life that we live today, that's how we know it. But we're going to go back into history to where it started from, and before 496, before it was considered immoral. Okay, so the celebration of Lupercalia is definitely, like I said, fertility. And so to explain a little bit of the background of it, it was a 3-day celebration, like most pagan holidays. It was a few days into celebrating the festivities. Um, on the first day, or even preparing for the first day, there was 2 goats that were sacrificed, and the skins of the goats were used to be cut up into strips, um, and the meat from the goats were cooked. That everybody was to eat this, okay, at the festival. What the idea was on the first day was that the young men that would take off all their clothes, and they would be anointed with the blood of the goat for fertility, and that the strip that they would receive from the priest at that time, um, and yes, I'm talking about a pagan priest, but would receive his strip, and he would chase the girls. The girls, also being unclothed, would run around and play. It was more like a game, and the idea was for the boys to slap the girl with the goat skin, and it was to induce fertility, to create fertility. And even though it was a game of chase and play and stuff like that, the idea for the girls was they wanted to be hit, they wanted to be chosen because it would induce fertility, and that the boys favored them, but part of the game they would run away from them and pretend that they didn't want to be hit. And although reality, the idea of the game was, of course, was to get slapped by this goat skin and the blood and the males and everything, so that they could at one point become pregnant. Now, towards the end of this game, and we're talking about teenagers, young adults, even possibly older adults that have not yet had children. Okay, so towards the evening, the priest and the priestess of the area that's holding the festivity would pair the young men and women together. The idea of coupling was for fertility. Fertility. That is key factor in this whole Lupercalia. That it didn't matter if you had a lover or a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. None of that mattered. That was literally off the charts. When you came to this celebration, you were to be paired with a partner, and this one would be pulled here. This one would be pulled here. The best way I've seen it described was by a woman that called it the naming pairing lottery. That's what she called it, the pairing lottery. And it would be like this: you take all the boys, all the men, and you put their names in this jar. You take all the girls and the women, and mind you, even though I said teenagers, they had to be of age for fertility. So like 13 on up would be the age. And the idea was to be paired with somebody that you could be compatible with. So the girls would be put over here in this jar. The names would be drawn. So Frederick is drawn from this one, and then reaches over here, and Lucille is drawn from this one, and then the priestess pairs them together for the remainder of the celebration. So from midday, February 13th, until the very end of the evening on February 15th, they were to be as a couple. Okay, the idea was to come together, to talk, to be together, to have sex as much as possible within that time period. And everybody's hopes and what they were doing all of this for was so that more children will be born, to grow the community. Okay, and at the end of the celebrations, it was very common for those people that were paired to go off and they would begin their life together. Those that were already paired with somebody else, say like this a married couple, if they had gone to the celebration, if they had partaken in it, once the celebration and festivities were over, then they would return back home wherever with their partner. But pregnancies came out from everywhere. And who the father was or this person, that person, none of that mattered. It was the idea of life. It was the whole thing was to bring about life. It wasn't concerned about who fathered this child or this father raising this one, this mother raising this one. And none of that mattered. The whole Lupercalia was about the 3-day celebration, pairing and giving birth. Okay, if you were part of that and you were paired with somebody for the say 2019 and you spent 3 days with them and you did not father a child or you did not conceive, then it was ideal to definitely return the following year. In many cases, some did have children and still continued to go. It was such a big thing. Lupercalia is, I want to say, as big as Yule has always been in the pagan celebrations. It was such a massive party, massive festivity, and its reason, its purpose, the idea of life, the idea of circle of life, to continue life. Um, in most cases, even in 2020, where we're at today, we still continue to favor the idea of fertility, of life, and it's the ending and the beginning and the continuing of the journey. So the party itself, the festivities itself, is where the Pope, I want to say Galasis was his name, but I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. He decided that the pagan practices of it was immoral, not just the pairing of the people, but the sacrificing of the goat and the slapping of the goat skins to induce fertility. It was thought of as perverted and gross and completely outdated. However, the Christians, although they took over this and they named it St. Valentine's, they have stories of their own that maybe they did not have sex as big as the whole pagan community, but they definitely have some unfavorable traditions from history when you're talking about the year 496. So anyways, that's where Valentine's came from. It came from Lupercalia, and it was definitely a pagan tradition for 3 full days. So if you have any questions or comments or anything, let me know. I love y'all. Mwah. Have a great night.